Okay, we're back and we're reviewing Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States. I am starting with chapter 1, and I'm imagining that this is probably going to need to be a multiple part of just chapter 1. There's so much material to cover. We're talking about Columbus. Columbus wasn't such a great guy. As a matter of fact, he wasn't even the first one within a 50-year period to land in our half of the hemisphere. In October 1492, after a 33-day journey, he actually landed in the Caribbean first, in the Bahamas. He took some indigenous people by force and demanded that they show him where these fields of gold was directed towards Cuba at that point, and did find pieces of gold in their jewelry and in their naturally occurring rivers and streams, which prompted to enslave and kidnap Arawak Indians. If pronunciation in any of this is ever wrong, please feel free to correct. When not as much gold was mined and discovered as he had promised Spain, he then made up for what was lacking in enslaving human lives. People were captured and forced into labor immediately. Pretty much, the Arawaks are battered down by Spanish oppression and use of muskets, physical torture, and just slave labor around the clock, that it resulted in horrendous responses from the indigenous people, including mass suicides, mother killing their infant children to save them from a failure to thrive. In 2 years, half of the 250,000 Haitian natives were dead. A lot of the source material comes from a priest that joined in the conquest of Cuba, Las Casas. Some of the following atrocities were directly quoted from Las Casas. Spaniards who just didn't feel like walking from one place to another literally rode on the back of the indigenous people to travel. They even quoted being fanned with palm fronds when they felt the sun was just too hot. And then a quote, knifing by 10s and 20s and cutting pieces of the indigenous people off of their bodies to test the sharpness of their blades. The work in mining the land was literal back-breaking work. Las Casas also reports backs being broken in efforts to carry large stones and soil away from the mining sites. From 1494 until 1508, 3 million lives perished from war and the conditions of slavery. This is important to note because it's horrendous and we should know about it, but it also sets the stage as we talk about future chapters because a pattern and a precedent was set. Columbus and Cortez set a very clear precedent and how that is to be done, and that the indigenous people are less than human, subhuman, and they need to be eradicated or used as free labor. This can be clearly seen with Richard Grenville. He and his ships landed in what we now know as Virginia, the Virginia colonies, in 1585. And almost immediately, Grenville burned whole native villages, going from wigwam to wigwam, setting them ablaze and engaging in all-out war. Zinn goes into explaining why it was that the early colonists felt such a rage and a disdain for, and I'm using those words, towards the indigenous people, just considering the starvation they were experiencing, and then the general disregard for the indigenous people's worth. That lethal combination resulted in war immediately, the spreading disease immediately, just a horrible precedent set early on. This is how he ends the chapter. Laws were then written to protect the use of enslavement and mass murder. So that's the chapter, chapter 1, real broad brush and fast overview. If there's anything that you feel I left out, anything that you want me to go back and touch on, any quotes that really stood out to you and you want listed, let me know, and we'll touch base soon. All right, bye.